Welcome to A Guide to Every Deck in EDH. Today we're looking at Isshin 2 Heavens as 1. So this is going to be one of our more casual, fun commanders. It is Isshin 2 Heavens as 1. It's a 3-mana Mardu commander. It's a 3/4, and it says if a creature attacking causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. So obviously we want a bunch of cards that have attack triggers or that trigger when you attack. So this could double up on those triggers in order to maybe not so much go infinite as to just get a bunch of value. So let's go through the attack trigger cards. We've got Delina, which whenever you attack for each opponent, you create a 1/1 token that is tapped and attacking them, which if you've got Isshin in play means that you generate 6 tokens that are 2 attacking each player. We've got Audacious Thief. Whenever it attacks, you draw a card and lose a life, so you'll draw 2, lose 2. Aurelia, the War Leader. When it attacks for the first time each turn, you untap all creatures you control, and after this phase, there is an additional combat phase, so this will give you 2 combat phases. Breach's Eager Pillager. This is from the as yet unreleased Lost Caverns of Ixalan, and when you attack, you choose from multiple abilities, the most important of which are typically going to be either creating a treasure, so creating 2 treasures, or exiling the top card of your library, and you may play it this turn. So with Isshin, exiling the top 2. Then we've got a bunch of draining / damaging effects. So Brutal Horde Chief. Whenever a creature you control attacks, defending player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So that'll be doubled up. So every attacking creature will drain 2 life. Similarly, Hell Rider. Whenever a creature you control attacks, Hell Rider deals 1 damage to defending player. Similar effect. And then Mishra, claimed by Gix. Whenever you attack, each opponent loses X life and you gain X, where X is the number of attacking creatures, so this will get doubled up. We've got Captain Lannery Storm, which makes a treasure when you attack. Commissar Severina Rain, which is whenever it attacks, each opponent loses X, where X is the number of other attacking creatures. You can also pay 2 and sacrifice another creature to gain 2 life and draw a card, which can be relevant given how many tokens you're going to be making in this deck. Hammers of Moradin has Myriad, which means you make a token copy of it that's attacking each other player that you're not already attacking with it. So this will double up and create double tokens. And whenever it attacks for each opponent, tap up to 1 target creature that player controls, so you can tap down 2 creatures the player controls. Hanwar Garrison makes 2 1/1 attackers. We also are playing Hanwar Battlements to meld them. So if you do meld them, they'll meld into the backside, which is a 7/4 that makes 3/2 tokens. Then we've got Hero of Bladehold, which makes 2 1/1s and has Battle Cry. So if you have Isshin in play, Hero of Bladehold will create 4 tokens, and you'll double Battle Cry, giving +2/0 to every creature. So right away, just off of Isshin plus Hero of Bladehold, you put, let's see, that is 12 power into play, just off the tokens. There's Cranko Tin Street Kingpin, which when it attacks, you put a +1 counter on it and then create a number of 1/1s. Notably, the 1/1s are not attacking, equal to its power, so this will double up. So you'll put a +1 counter on it and make 2 tokens, and then you'll put another +1 counter on it and make 3 tokens. Mardu Ascendancy. Whenever a non-token creature you control attacks, you make a 1/1 attacking goblin, and you can sack it to give creatures you control +0/+3 until end of turn. So every attack makes 2 tokens with Isshin. Myrel, Shield of Argiv, is 4 mana 3/4, and it is a Grand Abolisher. So during your turn, your opponents can't cast spells or activate abilities of artifacts, creatures, or enchantments. So this will help you protect what you're doing so your opponents can't interact with you. But also, it does make tokens. Whenever it attacks, create X 1/1s, where X is the number of soldiers you control. It itself is a soldier already, so you always make at least 1 and at least 2 with Isshin in play. And then with other soldiers, you will make additional tokens. And of course, if you get to have multiple attacks with this, you'll make even more soldiers. Then there's Martin Stromgald. This is one of our best attack triggers. When it attacks, all other attacking creatures get +X, where X is the number of other attacking creatures. So however many creatures you have that are attacking, you get +X -1, because Stromgald doesn't count itself. Or rather, it itself doesn't get pumped, but everything else does, which will then double up with Isshin. And then similarly, we've got Rosnacht, Heir of Roga, and Signal Pest, which are basically just here to have Battle Cry, so they double Battle Cry. And then another really good card is Sky Hunter Strike Force. This is a 3 mana flying melee, and as long as you control your commander, other creatures you control have melee. So melee is the creature gets +1 for each opponent you're attacking. So you have a 4-player commander pod, you're attacking 3 opponents, every one of your creatures gets +3. or with Isshin in play, +6. And those are the big like attack trigger cards for Isshin to double up. You then have other things in your card draw. Since your deck is mostly built around attacking with creatures, you want effects that are good with that. So we've got, for card draw, Timna, of course, Mindblade Render, and then we're playing a bunch of cheap creatures anyway, so play Skull Clamp, especially since we're making tokens. We've got Esper Sentinel, Bolus Citadel, and Ad Nauseam. Ad Nauseam is maybe dubious given the mana value of the deck, but we do need ways of drawing cards. We've got Aggravated Assault to get extra combat steps, Deadly Rollick and Swords as removal. We've got our tutors, Demonic, Enlightened, Imperial Seal, Vampiric Tutor, Tainted Pact. We've got our fast mana, Jeweled Lotus, Lotus Petal, Simian Spirit Guide. We're not so good at interacting with our opponent and therefore have to rely on stacks effects to prevent them from killing us too fast off of combos and whatnot. So we've got our Archon of Emeria, Deafening Silence, and Phyrexian Censor as our Rule of Law effects, and then Dranith Magistrate to screw up opponents being able to cast their commanders. We've got Serra Ascendant. This is just here to be a big beater. We are based around combat after all. Then we've got all of our ramp, so various Mana Rocks, Ragavan, and Dockside Extortionist. Fire Covenant as basically a sweeper because we can just pay a bunch of life to kill everything. And then we've got SWAT and the Red Blast to protect from our opponent. And then finally, we've got combo cards. So this is a little convoluted, but we have to assemble 2 different cards plus Isshin in order to go off with this. So first, there's the energy cards. So we've got Aether Geode Miner is when it attacks, you can create double energy, and you can pay 2 energy to exile it and return it to the battlefield. That second part is not relevant. The part that's relevant is that when it attacks, you produce 2 energy. So you produce 4 energy when you have Isshin in play. And then you've got Lightning Runner. It's a 2/2 with double strike and haste, and whenever it attacks, you get double energy. And then you may pay, and if it's a little hard to read, that's 8 energy. So you can pay 8 energy. If you pay the energy, you untap all creatures you control, and after this phase, there's an additional combat phase. So if you've got Isshin, Aether Geode Miner, and Lightning Runner, the Aether Geode Miner and Lightning Runner triggers are doubled up, which means that you get 8 energy per attack, and then you can spend that 8 energy to get an additional combat step. This obviously leads to infinite combat steps, and you should be able to win that way. There's also Aether Torch Renegade, which is ETB, you get 4 energy, and then you can pay energy for other reasons. This part here is not too relevant, but what is relevant is that you can use the energy that you get off of Aether Torch Renegade to do various things with these guys, and if you have the potential to bounce Renegade with other effects, you can create more energy, or copy it, which I'm going to get to. You then have Delina Wild Mage. So Delina Wild Mage is a 4 mana 3/2. When it attacks, you choose target creature you control and you roll a d20. You create a tapped and attacking token that's a copy of that creature, except it's not legendary and it has exile this creature at end of combat. And if you roll between 15 and 20, you create one of those tokens and you roll again. So you always at least create a token copy. So if you have Aether Torch Renegade plus Delina plus Lightning Runner plus Isshin, it means that Delina attacks, you create a copy of Aether Torch Renegade, and then because Isshin doubles the trigger on Delina, you make another copy of Aether Torch Renegade. That produces 8 energy when they hit the field. The Lightning Runner also produces energy, and then you use the energy to get additional combat steps. You then have Combat Celebrant. This is another combo card, so 3 mana 4/1. If it hasn't been exerted, you may exert it as it attacks, and when you do, you untap all other attacking creatures you control, and after this phase, there is an additional combat phase. So if you've got Delina, well, first of all, Combat Celebrant alone gives you 2 combat steps with Isshin in play, so that alone is already very good. Secondly, Delina can copy the Combat Celebrant, and while you can't exert the token copies immediately, the Combat Celebrant will untap those copies if you stack the triggers in the correct order. So you make the token copies of Combat Celebrant, then you untap all your creatures and you go to your second combat phase, and now even though you can't exert this Combat Celebrant, you can exert the token copy of Combat Celebrant, which will of course give you infinite combat steps with this combo. And then lastly, you've got Barakos Party Leader. It counts as every creature in the party, and when it attacks, defending player loses X life and you create X treasures, where X is the number of creatures in your party. So it is at least 1 creature in your party. And then if you have other creatures in your party, which various other cards in your deck may or may not be part of that party, but some of them are. Some of them are warriors, clerics, etc. You'll make additional treasure tokens, and then you can use these treasure tokens to pay for things. It's especially good, again, if you're getting multiple triggers. So like Isshin alone is going to make this always produce at least 2 treasures or more if you've got more things in the party. And you can use those treasures on various effects in your deck as needed. And then finally, we've got Breath of Fury. This is enchantment creature you control. Whenever enchanted creature deals combat damage to a player, you sacrifice it and attach Breath of Fury to a creature you control. If you do, untap all creatures you control, and after this phase, there is an additional combat phase. So as long as you can produce at least one additional attacker per combat, you can keep moving the Breath of Fury onto a new creature and keep taking extra combat steps. So anything that makes an additional token, anything that copies stuff, etc., will create an additional creature that you can attach Breath of Fury to, and then you'll take infinite combat steps using that. Then of course you got Dockside Extortionist, which combos with anything that's copying it to make tons of treasures. And then so with the things that you have, so Dockside, Barakos, or anything that's generating mana, you can use that in combination with Aggravated Assault to also continue to take extra combat steps. So for example, if you have Barakos and you've got 3 party members, so you've got it plus another 2 party members, then you can combo that with Aggravated Assault to keep making 6 treasures per combat. You use 5 of them to activate Aggravated Assault and go off to combat again. Or if you've got Dockside Extortionist plus, let's say, like Delina or some other effect, you can make potentially 6 treasures off of that. If your opponents have just 3 artifacts or enchantments between them, then the Delina plus Dockside will make copies of Dockside, which then creates 6 treasures, which then can pay for Aggravated Assault. So lots of combat-related stuff going on here, but the other thing is that apart from just these combos, you can just win off of combat. You can just win off of creating tokens or pumping your team a whole bunch or draining the opponent off of Hell Rider or Brutal Horde Chief, etc. So you don't have to combo. And that is Isshin 2 Heavens as 1.